Mill sent her homemade porn asking my husband to promote her Onlyf-ns. Now the family's in turmoil, but we're too speechless to explain. My Mill, 40F, has always been very open about sex. When I first met my husband, she managed a sex toy store. About a year ago she started working towards a degree on sexual health and wellness. She nude models for a local artist, and around a month ago she started an Onlyf-ns account. Sex, and an openness about it, has always been an extraordinarily normal thing for her. I have absolutely nothing against her working in the sex industry. That's her forte, and I'm happy that she's doing well and enjoying what she does. However, I've had some slight concerns about it before. Not specifically her working in the sex industry, or her openness in general, more so how open she is. Especially with her own kids. For example, my husband and I started dating in high school, when she was managing the sex store. When she would come home from work, she would stop into my husband's, BF at the time, room, and hand us sample sizes of different lubes and sensation creams saying I thought you guys might want to try some of these. It always made us both pretty uncomfortable, and it was extremely awkward to have my boyfriend's mom hand me things to try sexually with her son. But, nonetheless, the most conversation that my husband and I ever had about it back then was about how awkward it was. Awkward, and uncomfortable enough that we never actually used these things. They just piled up on a shelf by his bed. Another time, while we were dating, fresh out of high school, we were hanging out with his sisters. His mom was still working at the sex toy shop. Once in a while, she would come home with silly toys, and on this night, she walked in with a 1-foot-long, glittery dildo. She playfully whipped it around towards us like a sword. His sisters screamed and ran from her, and for a while we all laughed and had fun about it. Snatching it from one another and chasing each other around with the glitter schlog. Eventually, my husband's sister, 17 at the time, said something like, "Mom, you better not have brought that home to use. That's crazy." My husband chimed off an EU, saying he didn't need to think about that, and his mom laughed and replied, "Oh no, that's silicone. You know the toys I use are glass." Again, my husband made a weird face, but didn't say anything. When we got to his room, I said that it was weird that his mom talked to her children about what she uses to get her rocks off, and he told me that she's always been way too open about things that none of them wanted to know, but that she's always been this way, so he's just gotten used to tuning it out. As time went on, I got used to the openness. And it was just that, being too open about personal stuff within conversation. However, yesterday the openness went too far. My husband and I were sitting in our living room watching TV. My husband got a text from his mom and opened it, and had a visceral reaction. He tossed his phone down, stood up, walked away from it with his hands over his face, while saying things like "oh my god" and "holy shit" under his breath. Naturally, I thought that someone had died, so I started frantically asking what was wrong. All he said was that he didn't even want to open his phone again. I asked again what was wrong, and he told me that his mom just sent him pictures. I was confused, but my concern started to grow. I asked what he meant by pictures, and he hesitated before saying, "I don't want to ask you to look, but I can't open it back up to delete it myself, so I need you to." My stomach dropped. I opened his phone to see what was there and I immediately felt nauseous. There was a text that read, "Hey, I know you've always supported me and I wanted to see if you'd be willing to subscribe to my so that I can get my numbers up while I'm still getting started. Of course I don't expect or want you looking through it, but the more subscriber numbers I have, the more engagement I can get. I was also wondering if you'd be willing to share my link to some of your friends at work. Husband is in a male-dominated, blue-collar job. The pics I included are to send to them with the link, but don't tell them I'm your mom." And under it was the pictures. There were 3 nude photos of his mother. And not just naked in a mirror, or pic of the boobs kind of photos. They were full-on pornographic photos. One of her tied up in BDSM gear, one of her face down ass up on her bed, and one of her with legs spread and a dildo halfway in her mouth. My blood was boiling. I deleted what she'd sent, and my husband and I were both silent for a moment. I didn't know what else to say or do, so I broke the silence by asking, "What now?" My husband told me to block his mom on his phone, so I did. I asked if this was something his mom has done before, and he said no. He told me that in the past, she's asked if he wanted to see pictures of the drawings she posed for. He always felt a bit guilty saying no, so he simply didn't respond when she asked, and she never sent it. Then, my husband went pale and started walking to the bathroom saying he felt sick. While he was in the bathroom, I blocked his mom on my phone as well, including her social medias. When my husband came back out of the bathroom, he called his sister. He asked her if she was with their mom, and when she said no, he explained to her what all had just gone down. His sister was also speechless. Then, he asked her not to say anything to other family members right now, and explained that neither him or I would be in contact with their mom for a while. He also told her that any time we were home for a visit, he would let his sisters know so that we could plan to see them, but that his mom would not be included in those plans from here on out. My Mill quickly realized that she was blocked on everything by the both of us, and by that night, she had the whole family blowing up our phones asking why. The constant messages haven't stopped, and so far we've just muted our phones as we don't even know what to say. How do you explain that your mother sent you her homemade porn? Update 1. When my husband got home from work today, he did have me recover the messages for evidence should it be needed. I screenshotted the message with timestamps, and each of the photos. In the photos, I scribbled over her, not so, private areas as well. After that, I sent the images to my phone and once again deleted the messages from his phone, both in his mother's texts and mine, per husband's request. This was something that several people suggested in the comments of my previous post, and believe me, we were on the same page before I even read them. My husband and I are also regulars in therapy, both individual and couples counseling. When we got married, we agreed that doing counseling from the get-go was a good idea, not because we have problems in our marriage, but it gives us the tools to confront issues in the future and keeps us on the same page 100% of the time. That being said, I asked my husband if he'd ever mentioned his mother's sexualness in his own therapy and he said no. Since it is how she's always been raised, he saw it as mostly normal. I suggested that this should most definitely be brought up at his next session, and he agreed. I also asked if there was anything that has happened that was a bit overboard in the past. Outside of conversation, he said that his mothers would often come home from work with new lingerie, and she would put it on and wear it around the house for the rest of the night as if they were regular clothes. When she would do this, he would either stay in his room, or go to a friend's house because it made him uncomfortable. When she would ask this stuff, my husband simply wouldn't answer with more than "I don't know," but eventually he did tell her to stop. He told her that he didn't want to talk about these things with her, that he knew I wouldn't want her talking about those things with her, and that her asking this stuff made him extremely uncomfortable. Her response was to get defensive and act as if she'd been disrespected. She would say that sex was normal, that she should be able to have these conversations with her son. She even accused him of shaming her sexuality. So, he went back to ignoring the questions altogether. Some suggested that we have an in-person conversation with her about this happening. Not only do we live far away, but we aren't ready for a conversation about it, and we especially aren't ready to discuss it in person. This happened yesterday afternoon, and it will honestly be a very long time before any sort of communication happens with her at all. I did find out what she'd been telling family. She's telling them that she asked if her son supported her, not if he would subscribe and share her content. That is why family has been reaching out and asking why we've blocked her for asking that. We will be telling family exactly what happened, but we aren't quite ready to do so yet, and that will come within the next few days. We're still processing all of what's going on. My husband has a therapy session tomorrow, and we have one together the next day. We will likely wait to talk about this with family until after our sessions. That way we can get our ducks in a row a bit more, and we are even considering legal action. Again, that is something we will bring up with our therapists before continuing. That is the main reason we took screenshot evidence. For those curious, yes. Mill is young. She had my husband at 16 to 17, and we got married young as well. Very common among my family, and in the field of work he is in. And that field of work is the military. So, him sharing his mother's content would heavily affect him. Not just a firing, that would give him a sharp, sexual harassment/assault response and prevention case, and a possible dishonorable discharge which would make it extremely difficult to go on after the military. Update 2. My husband and I have spoken with therapists about the entire situation, and we've drawn a conclusion to how we will handle things. As advised by our therapist, and based on what we've planned ourselves, my Mill will be cut off until she does the self-work and is no longer overly sexual towards family. That being said, my husband and I are prepared for her to be cut off permanently. She will likely not attend therapy herself, as she sees it as unimportant. I'm not sure if her opinion comes from her visiting a therapist previously, but she does believe that therapists just tell you everything wrong with yourself and why you need to change. They don't actually try to help your mental health, just make it worse. I'm sure everyone can imagine what has caused her to draw those conclusions. As of now, husband and I will not be pushing legal action. We've decided that for us, at this time, we would prefer to lay down the law in what we feel comfortable with. If that is respected, that is great and nothing more will come of it on our end. If that isn't respected, and there are more attempts to reach us such creating accounts etc., we will most likely seek out a restraining order. As I mentioned in a previous update, I have saved the screenshots from the original issue, so we will have that to present if needed. On to family. As a reminder, husband's side of the family was blowing up our phones asking why we would block Mill. What Mill told them was that we blocked her after she simply asked for our support in the things she's doing. What they didn't know was that she sent photos of herself. We told them, didn't send the photos of course, but did describe them. Things were understood quickly and nothing more was said. I don't know if family has taken it upon themselves to confront Mill about this. If they have, great, she needs it. If they haven't, oh well. Now, from my own perspective, I was raised in a family where everything was very taboo. Sex, sexuality, our bodies, even our periods were difficult to talk about. So much so, that when my mom found out I had a crush on a boy when I was 13, I cried and profusely apologized because I thought I would be in a lot of trouble. Asking questions wasn't okay either, so when I did have questions, I couldn't simply ask. For example, I overheard my mom say the word porn and didn't know what it meant. When I asked my parents what the word porn was, and I got sent to my room. So, at 7 years old, I grabbed the family tablet and googled porn. Saw a bunch of naked people, got scared, put the iPad back in the living room. When my parents checked the search history that night, I was screamed at and not allowed to touch electronics for the rest of the year. With all of that in mind, a sex-positive family was so incredibly foreign to me. The idea of being able to go to your mom, ask about sex or your body, and have a conversation instead of getting in trouble, was completely new. When my husband and I were dating, I never knew that his mom was going too far. I thought that this simply was sex positivity. Of course, I had intuition that things went too far at times, like when I questioned the toy conversation, but when the response to my questions were she's just really open, I chalked it up to that and didn't really question it anymore. To answer some common questions. My mill is not this much when it comes to my sills. I always assumed it was because they were younger, but the pictures being sent to only my husband really hammered the nail into the covert incest coffin. Come to find out, Mill also isn't quite as open with sills. She is open about her own doings, but doesn't meddle in their own like she did my husband. I mentioned before that she would question my husband on our sex life when we were dating. Another phone call with my middle sill revealed that she's absolutely never done that to the girls. In fact, there have been times where she's overheard my sills saying something about their boyfriends, and she would say, "Eeg. Lower your voice, I don't want to know." Whereas she would straight up ask my husband about sex. Another common question was, "Where's Phil?" He's never been in the picture. My husband's dad left when Mill was pregnant with her youngest daughter. Mill also doesn't have a father herself because he left when she was a baby. And there aren't a lot of men in the family. 2 distant uncles, and a few cousins, but as far as close family, my husband was the only male growing up. And yes, some people got it right. My husband looks exactly like his bio dad. Same build, same hair type and color, same bone structure, same eye shape, even a very similar birthmark. That fact makes this even more gross altogether. And finally, no, we don't have children. However, I have always had concerns about leaving children alone with her because of the openness. I will know when my future children are ready to know about certain topics. Those conversations will come from my husband and I and only us. I've always been concerned that Mill would discard our opinions on that and give our future children the bird and bees talk whenever she felt like. Unless she cannot fix whatever is wrong in her brain, she will not ever be alone with our kids, and even possibly know them. Iskist at counseling together, more than just yesterday's session as well. Again, thank you everyone. Update 3. Wow. So, first off, I want to thank everyone again for the outpouring of support and advice since my last update. Honestly, we needed it because what happened in the past few days has been something else. If I'm being honest, it feels like we've been dropped into a season finale of some twisted family drama that even HBO would say is a bit too much. So after the dust mostly settled with the family, the initial shock, the blocking, and the, thankfully, understanding messages from most of the extended relatives, Mill herself finally decided to go on the offensive. Or, as I've decided to call it, the redemption PR campaign from hell. 3 days after we'd gone no contact, we started getting a barrage of emails. Not just your standard please unblock me variety, but carefully crafted apology essays. Some were obvious copy-pastes, but some got personal. I'll give you the least disturbing rundown. Email 1, subject, a heartfelt apology. Please read, son. This long-winded message started by Mill rattling on about how hard it is for women of a certain age to feel empowered, how the world judges women who own their sexuality, and how her own parents never supported her. About halfway through, she throws in a total non-apology. I'm sorry if you were offended, but I never meant for you to open the pictures, and ends by asking for help rebuilding our trust, maybe through a special Motherson spa day. Yes. You read that right? Email 2, to me, subject, from woman to woman. This one was weirder. It was like those unsent angry letters you write to your ex but never send. She ranted about how I'm repressing her son by siding with archaic standards of decency, said I should have educated myself about body positivity before marrying into the family, and accused me of turning her kids against her. Email 3, a massive group email to everyone in the extended family, cousins, great aunts, random in-laws, and apparently her bridge partner from 2009, explaining, badly, her version of events again but escalating. She claims someone hacked her and sent those pictures accidentally. As if the hacker then sent a personalized request for of support and her business promo link. Sure, Jan. After the email binge failed to get a response, we didn't reply to a single one. Mill doubled down, in a spectacularly cringy way. She went full TikTok activist. It started with a Facebook post, which a friend screenshotted and sent to us. God bless group chats, a long public status about family betrayal, cancel culture coming for empowered women, and the dangers of silencing sex-positive mothers. No direct name drops, but enough details for anyone to connect the dots. Then came the TikToks. Yes, plural. Mill posted several videos, half arty and serious, half deranged rants. Some were PSAs about how people over 40 are the new sexual vanguard and how haters will try to censor women living authentically. Others were just weird thirst trap content with hashtag family first hashtags. Our favorites, though, were the duets with minor TikTok sex positivity influencers, in which she kept dropping subtle references to being ostracized by my own blood for refusing to be shamed. She also joined a couple of Reddit threads, not this one, but from her own burner accounts. Again, thank you, mutual friends who spotted it, and made posts about having to move on from puritanical family. Extended family on my husband's side was not having it. Some of the older ladies in the family, husband's grandmother, one great aunt, and cousin, started leaving public comments challenging Mill's hack excuse. It escalated to one of Mill's cousins straight up calling her delusional, inappropriate, and embarrassing the family name. The great aunt, the matriarch, sent us a private message saying, "I don't know what exactly happened, but I've seen her antics for years. You kids do what you need to do to feel safe." My husband's younger sisters, meanwhile, have been absolute solid gold. Both have cut Mill off as of this week. Middle Sill, 21F, actually sent us screenshots from a group chat with their mom, in which she tried to guilt them into defending her online. Youngest Sill, 18F, read the group riot act, saying, "Sending nudes to your child isn't sex positivity, it's trauma." We thought Mill might just keep things digital, but then came the real world attempt. My husband works on base, military, as noted, and we live off base but not far. Mill and her new boyfriend, some guy a decade younger, also featured in her TikToks in light up sunglasses, showed up at our apartment unannounced. I was at work, husband was home. Apparently, they drove 2 hours and knocked on our door, clutching what my husband described as the most insane gift basket imaginable. Bath bombs, copies of Come As You Are, a signed t-shirt from Mill's Onlyf-ns promo, and a piñata, for some reason. My husband, all credit to him and his backbone, locked every door and did not answer, watching them through the Ring cam and telling them through the speaker to leave, for good, until you respect my boundaries. Mill sobbed and raved about family togetherness, while her boyfriend kept asking, I kid you not, if we wanted to join a sex-positive family healing circle. They sat outside for nearly an hour before leaving. That was the straw. After discussing with therapists and his command, my husband felt compelled to let his CO know. In case Mill started drama at his workplace/base, we decided to involve a lawyer. Nothing major, a very formal cease and desist drafted and sent by certified mail, laying out that further attempts to contact us, physically or digitally, or to involve us in her business, would result in a harassment claim. The lawyer also advised us, keep all the digital receipts, we did, screenshots, emails, TikToks, etc., continue not engaging, and document any attempts at contact with police from now on. We're also letting our landlord and building security know, in case she turns up again. Couples therapist was a lifesaver here. She helped us reframe Mill's actions as not mere boundary pushing, but potentially a pattern of what's called covert incest or emotional enmeshment. Basically, Mill blurs boundaries to fill unmet emotional needs with her son that should never be his to fill, and her whole sex positivity defense is a smokescreen for extremely inappropriate behavior. This knowledge was, funnily enough, both horrifying and somewhat freeing for my husband. I think he'd always believed he was just prudish, or repressed, but now he sees her behavior as abnormal and exploitative. He's angry about it now, not guilty or ashamed. He's writing his own boundaries letter to Mill, which our therapist will help us word, but he may wait to send it until the dust settles more. We are staying 100% NC. All social media, even LinkedIn, locked down. Landlord on alert. Lawyer on speed dial. We broke down crying when my husband said, if this is what protecting my own family looks like, even if it means saying goodbye to my mom forever, so be it. We both know we made the right call. As for kids, if and when we decide to start a family, Mill will never see them unless she's undertaken long-term, verifiable therapy and proven, over many years, to have respected everyone's boundaries. We're leaning toward never, frankly. When we told Middle Sill about the piñata, she laughed for the first time in days. You've basically become the main characters of the weirdest modern family sitcom ever. Honestly, at this point? She's not wrong. End update. I never thought ducking my Mill's OnlyFans would lead to cease and desist letters, TikTok rants, and someone offering to heal us with a piñata, but here we are. My advice? Love and sex are great, so are boundaries. Update 4. First, to everyone who's been following, or binging, our saga, buckle up, because the past week has gone from awkward family dramedy to is this a Netflix limited series? Territory, and, spoiler alert, none of it was supernatural, but it did involve a wellness workshop, a block party meltdown, an HR investigation, and, incredibly, an accidental step toward healing. Let's start with the most insane development, Mill's Sexual Renaissance Community Workshop. Yep, she went there. Mill apparently funneled all her cancelled by my own family energy into organizing a semi-public, sex positivity event at a nearby co-op art space. She even made sure it would overlap, conveniently, with the date she knew my husband's unit was scheduled for a group-based run through the local park. I can only assume this was either wishful stalking or extreme wishful thinking. She promoted it everywhere, Eventbrite, Facebook, Reddit, this time not even bothering with a burner account. Tagline, reclaim your boundaries, reclaim your life. If you think that's biting, hang on. A couple of my husband's coworkers who follow local event pages recognized Mill's face and sent him a screenshot. She was, again, using his military portrait, public from his LinkedIn, in her seminar pitch as an example of family support. She even listed him as a silent ally. Cue internal drama at his command, not because he did anything wrong, but because, with a court order pending, he had to notify JAG about possible reputation smearing. That made its way to HR, who investigated, they immediately saw through her manipulation. The upshot, he's now officially documented as the victim of his mother's boundary breaching. His CO and several higher-ups have his back 100%. Also, his photo was forcefully DMCA'd down. Meanwhile, Mill's wellness gathering flopped spectacularly. She booked a 30-seat gallery, hired a yoga instructor/womb energy coach, and prepped a Q&A about overcoming family shame. No shows everywhere. 6 dudes came thinking it was a singles mixer. 3 left when the icebreaker was named something your mother did for your sexual awakening. 2 more bailed after Mill started her personal PowerPoint, which included, no joke, a pixelated outline animation of her family tree that dissolved into peach and eggplant emojis. The last attendee, her boyfriend, live-streamed her speech on IG, which is how the younger Sills and I got to watch, from the safety of home, as Mill rambled about sons learning to love openly and support confidently. She literally referenced demanding accountability from my entire bloodline, starting today. Huge plot twist. Halfway through, the venue owner cut the projector and said, "We agreed on an empowerment workshop, not family revenge porn." Workshop over. Internet video scrubbed within an hour. I can't believe I wrote that sentence either. In the fallout, Mill disappeared offline for a few days, a record. We figured we might actually get some peace. Then, small flashes of progress. Her sisters, the aunts, reached out to US. Turns out, they'd been lurking, quietly mortified for years, and now wanted to apologize for ever excusing Mill's oversteps as just quirks. We talked, and for the first time, my husband finally got affirmation from his own extended family. Yes, he's not crazy, and yes, what Mill did crossed every existing line. And then, just as we thought life might slow down, the universe said not so fast. Our little apartment complex had its annual summer barbecue. We were initially dreading it, half expecting Mill to appear with a new piñata. Jokes were made. Husband and I debated skipping, but our nice neighbors convinced us to come. Cut to 2 hours into the party, music, hot dogs, actual normal human conversation for the first time in weeks, and a random confrontation with one of Mill's college classmates who'd recognized us from the infamous TikTok saga. She cornered me at the drinks table to say, "Wow, your family drama is, like, legendary for the psych department." Her words, then, and I kid you not, she apologized. "We never understood how rough it must be for you too." I dropped Mill from our group project. She made half the class uncomfortable. She then told me the university started a review of Mill's fieldwork with undergraduates after inappropriate family boundary stories showed up in class discussions. It was surreal, but cathartic, oddly enough. Even strangers were validating what my husband and I had been living with for years. Finally, today, the real doozy, Mill herself sent an honest-to-God handwritten letter. No TikToks, no mass emails, no spa day bribes. Just a 3-page apology, in actual ink. She admitted the boundary smashing wasn't empowerment, it was me needing help. She said she'd heard from family, classmates, even total strangers, that she'd gone too far and had finally, scheduled a therapy intake. She apologized for using her son's name in her promotion, and swore to give us space, truly, until and unless you ever choose to invite me back on your terms. She even sent back the house keys she'd somehow kept in her purse since we moved 2 years ago. We spent the whole evening just sitting with that. Is it closure? Not quite, but it sounds like a start, and a necessary pause. So, what's new since the last update? Mill's bid for community support backfired. Multiple organizations, from her school to the art collective, are reviewing her conduct with clear eyes and enough second-hand embarrassment to last us a decade. The cease and desist worked. Apart from her letter, no new contact, no base drive-bys. My husband, with support from family and command, no longer doubts himself or feels prudish. His boundaries are reinforced, not eroded. For the first time, other adults, extended family, Mill's colleagues, even, unwittingly, her university, are holding her to account. We got a taste of normalcy. Neighbors, friends, and even some outsiders now know the story, and no one called us overreactive. What comes next? We're not letting Mill back in tomorrow, next week, or even this year. She's got a mountain of work to do. But the silence feels different now. Safer. Like we can finally catch our breath. There's no perfect ending to this, but maybe it's a messy sort of healing. We've seen the worst fallout, mourned the family relationship we wished we could have, and built something stronger for ourselves, together. And if Mill actually goes through with therapy? Well, miracles happen. Until then, we're reclaiming our own story, and, dare I say, sleeping much better at night. And yep, we still have the piñata. We've all jokingly agreed to torch it together for closure, maybe with a steak on the grill, and 0 eggplant emojis in sight. If you're ever faced with a boundary bulldozer in your life, hold those lines. You are not prudish for wanting basic decency. And you're definitely not alone.